Hey everybody, this is The Week in Wrestling. It's a new podcast we're doing at the Fight Site where I'll be kind of just going through the most important things in the sport of wrestling this week to sort of guide you through sort of being a wrestling fan. Following wrestling, it's not always easy with, there's college, there's international, there's so many different streaming platforms that these things are on. And it's especially difficult this year because things are changing very fast. Everything's very condensed and concentrated. There's still these pro cards going on in addition to the college season. So this is going to be kind of the weekly highlights, the best upcoming matches, sort of like on an MMA podcast. You might preview, the top few fights on the UFC card, and then if there's a big Bellator or Ryzen or One card, you might talk about that too, and then recapping the highlights of the past week. So this past week in college wrestling, there were a few really good duels. One of the big ones was Pittsburgh against Navy. It was a very competitive duel from start to finish. It had a lot of really good individual matches. Cole Matthews versus I think Cody Tribus. I don't know. It was two kind of top 20, maybe in the 10 to 20 range nationally. Wrestlers. Matthews took an early lead, and Tribus kept attacking, but he couldn't score, and then he finally got it late in the match. And then there was Jake Wenzel against Tanner Skidgel, and that match had a lot of really good mat wrestling, especially from Wenzel. His leg riding, his mat returns were really good. And that was kind of the swing match in the duel. That whole duel is on ESPN Plus if you want to watch the replay. There was also apparently on ESPN Plus, but I was not able to get it. It's some kind of deal between ESPN and the ACC network, and I was not able to watch it, but other people were. There was a duel between Virginia Tech and Campbell. The big match in that one was Bryce Andonian against Dean Heil. Very back and forth. Final score was 12-9 for Andonian. There was also a great duel between North Dakota State and Oregon State on FloWrestling. And this one really, I think, showed how fun duels can be, in addition to the pit one. The way it was really back and forth. It came down to the last match, the heavyweight match. A match that on paper was not super close, but partly because Brandon Metz for North Dakota State is kind of a wild man, and partly because Brian Barnes for Oregon State really stepped up to try and get his team the win. That match went to overtime. Metz ended up winning. North Dakota State won the duel. And you can watch the replay of that one on FloWrestling if you want. This week upcoming, there's some good stuff. College, we have some kind of try thing with Missouri, Central Michigan, and Wyoming. I'm not sure. And for watching these things, you can go to theopenmat.com. It's a wrestling website, and they have a streaming guide where it'll tell you where you can watch all the college wrestling for a given week. But those are three good teams. There's also Oklahoma against Arizona State. I don't know where that's going to be streamed, but it probably will be somewhere. And the 157 match there is Ja'Cory Teamer for Arizona State, who is very good but inconsistent, wrestling against Justin Thomas for Oklahoma, who actually beat him last year. There's also the Big Ten season is starting. They did not wrestle last week. Only some of the teams are wrestling this week. But it's the number one conference in college wrestling. There's a lot of really good teams and really good wrestlers. Michigan against Rutgers is a good duel. Nebraska against Minnesota as well. Nebraska has a bunch of interesting lineup battles, especially at 141 and 49. And so it'll be interesting to see who they send out for that duel. But there's not a ton of great college wrestling this week. It's a good week, but I think it's sort of overshadowed by the international styles. There are two cards. They're both on FloWrestling. The first one was apparently going to be on Rockfin at one point, and there were some negotiations, and it ended up on Flow. But Kyle Dake is wrestling for the first time in about 6 months since he beat Frank Chamizo. He's wrestling David Mcfadden. Mcfadden's a guy I've really liked the last however long it's been since his college career ended, 9 months. He's gone up in weight and looked a lot better. He's taken a lot of shots. He's a little bit overmatched against Dake, but I think he's a guy to keep your eye on, David Mcfadden, training at the Penn RTC. Yanni Diakomahalis is a very fun guy to watch. He's wrestling Anthony Ashnault. And Gabe Dean is continuing his kind of comeback from retirement. He at one point made it sound like he was just going to do the Flow tournament back in October or whatever, November maybe. But he's kept at it. He had a match with David Taylor that was much closer than I thought it would be. The score of that was 6-2. And I thought David Taylor was just going to completely wipe the floor with him. So it seems like Gabe Dean is really taking it seriously, and he's kind of getting back into form. His timing and his attacks are much better than they were back at Senior Nationals. He actually won that tournament, but I didn't think he looked good. Since then, I think he's been doing a little bit better. He's wrestling Mike Machiavello, who is a little bit bigger, a little bit less credentialed, but a guy who was late to start wrestling in life and has basically been getting better even after college. And then the Flow thing, they don't name their events, which is stupid. So you just have to call it the Burroughs versus Taylor card or the whatever thing. But the headliner is Jordan Burroughs versus David Taylor. That's a really good match. It's the kind of thing you don't always see or didn't always see in wrestling where, you have guys moving around weights and stuff to create a match people want to see. Because the competition of structure of wrestling is all about winning tournaments rather than promoting individual matches. And so it is cool to see that's starting to change where they're able to put together matches like this. We're doing a preview article on this at the fight site, sort of a roundtable type of thing. So I don't know what's going to come out first, the article or this podcast, but keep your eye out for that because it means I don't have to talk too much about the match right now. I can move on to the next one, which is Adeline Gray versus Tamira Mensah. Also a match of two world champions. The Burroughs Taylor, if you don't know, they're both world champions. Gray versus Mensah, women's match, 76 kilograms. Gray is a multiple-time world champion at that weight. Tamira Mensah is a world champion at 68. She's moving up to wrestle Adeline Gray. I think Gray will probably win. I have not watched a ton of tape on it. I think she's probably better, and she's also much bigger. I would love to see Tamira win it, but I don't think it's going to happen. The whole card is really good, but a few kind of interesting or unusual ones that stand out to me. Nashon Garrett versus Joey Mckenna. So Nashon was going to go 57 kilograms. He made a world team in 2018 at 61. And he had been wrestling at 57, and it looked like the weight cut was really slowing him down. He didn't have any pop in his legs, and that's kind of how he scores. Is his best attack is a double leg, and he's also got a good single, but he's a speed based wrestler, and with no drive in his legs, he couldn't really make that work. So he has given up on getting down to 57 for the Olympics. He's going to 65. He's wrestling Joey Mckenna, who is already at 65. Probably a second tier guy at that weight. He's behind Yanni, Zane, and Jordan Oliver. But he's a guy that could challenge for, fourth, fifth on the ladder. He had a win over Yanni in 2019 at Senior Nationals, but hasn't been great this year. I think I favor Mckenna in that match. He's full size for the weight. He controls matches pretty well in terms of keeping guys, basically staying in position as he works his way forward. He basically doesn't come out of stance too much. He doesn't bring his hands up too much, and he looks for his chances to jump in on a leg. And Nashon takes so many fakes. You sometimes step in hard and you leave that leg open to be shot on. Garrett also has some weaknesses sometimes on bottom, getting turned, and Joey Mckenna is good on top. But Garrett is, a good wrestler. He has a good double leg. He has a good single leg. And maybe he's able to draw out Mckenna's face and get Mckenna to step. And it'll just be a good measuring stick for Nashon to see how he stacks up at 65. Emily Shilson against Erin Goldston, women's 50 kilogram match. Shilson is, on the rise. She is like 19 or something. She was a cadet world champ. She's wrestled a lot this fall and winter. She was really impressive at Beat the Streets. I did a preview article for that one where I said she's good, but I'm worried about if she's going to get pushed around, and that did not happen at all. She just completely destroyed her opponent there. Erin Goldston is a wrestler that I always feel like should be doing better. It feels like she hasn't really reached her full potential yet. So I'm looking forward to that match. I think both of them have really good upside. Matt Mcdonough versus Ethan Lisac is just a very weird match. Mcdonough hasn't wrestled in like 5 years. Never really did much in freestyle. He was a good college wrestler, and then kind of was done. Lisac is he was mostly a mat wrestler in college, which doesn't usually translate as well to freestyle, but he's really making a go at freestyle. He's been up at 65 for the Olympic year. I think he wants to go back down to 61, and he could be a tough guy there. There's a lot of other matches too. Jaden Cox will be wrestling. James Green will be wrestling. They're both probably going to win easily, so I didn't feel like getting into those matches. But the entire lineup on that Flow card is really good. I'd highly recommend you watch it. That is all for this week. Next week I'll be recapping some of those matches and previewing the stuff that's going to be happening next weekend.